Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, your place for news and gameplay. Some good, some bad, and let's be honest, likely some raging tilting. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell for notifications. In today's episode, we're taking a look at some test server action, and this is a huge rebalance for the game for various robots and weapons. On Saturday, it's only about the rebalance, and on Sunday, we can actually look at the Ragnarok pack again. But this weekend, I'm going to be focusing on the rebalances. So let's get started. There's a lot to go through, and I'll try to do it quickly so we can get into some gameplay. So first off, let's look at the robots that are being nerfed. We have the Mercury here that is having its ability, which is a hell dive damage decrease by 10,000, which actually will be quite significant for some players who use the Mercury. The ability cooldown is actually being increased by 4 seconds. Again, that's another nerf. And the stealth duration is going from 5 seconds down to 4 seconds. So that's, you're losing 1 second of stealth. The Hellburner has having its ability damage decreased by 4,500. And its destruction damage when it dies is being decreased by 2,250. The Invader itself is having its overall durability decreased by 20,000. The speed is being increased, though, to compensate a little bit by 4 kilometers per hour. And the ability cooldown is being increased up to 16 seconds from 13 seconds. So that's additional 3 seconds of cooldown. Now that's it for the nerfs of the robots. Now let's look at the actual buffs for the robots themselves. So first off, we have the Hades. Its ability damage is being increased by 2,000. The special ability aiming has actually been improved, and the special ability rounds fire quicker. The Nemesis is having its health increased by 10,000, and its retribution damage absorption through the shield is being increased as well. The Strider is having its ability cooldown decreased, so it's actually going from 12 seconds down to 10 seconds. So it'll allow the Strider to accumulate its dashes quicker. The Blitz robot is having its durability increased by 15,000. The ability damage is being increased by 540. The Aegis shield durability is being increased by 15,000. And the speed, which has been a major complaint for those running the Blitz, is being increased by an additional 10 kilometers per hour from 45 up to 55 kilometers per hour. Next is we have the Raker. Its ability damage is being increased. If you assuming overall damage per ability, this is a huge buff. It's going from 2,562 all the way up to 15,250. That's an increase of 12,688 damage. And also it's having its ability mechanic for shooting has been changed as well. Next we have the Wayland. It has a faster mode change, allowing you to switch modes quicker. The repair radius has been increased from 75 meters to 100 meters, an additional 25 meters. The repair power has been increased by allowing an additional 100 health. And its durability has been increased by 15,000 from 235,000 all the way up to 250,000. The Mender is having a 4th repair pulse added for an additional 1 second of ability duration. Now the repair power itself is being decreased by 4,000. However, taking into account that you're now going from 3 repair pulses up to 4, your overall healing is actually an additional 2,500. So on the surface, it may look like the repair power is a nerf, but it really is a buff once you take into account the 4th pulse that's being added. The Raijin is having its shield durability increased by 20,000. The Leo is having its overall durability increased by 18,000, and the Galahad is having its overall durability increased by 20,000. Now if we get into the actual weapons. For the buffs, we have the Wasp, which is having its fire rate increased. It's having its damage increased by 300, and it's having its corrosion damage increased by 100. The Shock Train itself is going from 7 charges down to 6 charges, so it doesn't take as long to fully charge up a Shock Train, and it's also having its damage increased. Now the damage increased is just under 200, it looks like. Now That's going from 1920 to 2215. Now, on the surface, that looks like a buff. But if you actually take into account that this is damage per charge, previously, if you had 7 charges with 1,920 damage, that equated to 13,440 damage per shot train at a full charge. Now, if you change it to 6 charges with 2,215 damage, if you total that up, that's 13,290. Your actually overall damage for one shot train at a full charge is being decreased by 150. So while many people are probably looking at this and saying, "Oh goodness, God, why Pixonic are you buffing yet the shock train?" It really isn't a buff in the sense that the only really thing that's being buffed is you don't have to wait 7 charges to get a full load of a shock train. You only have to wait 6 charges, but the damage, overall damage at that full charge of the 6 charges now is slightly decreased overall than what it was previously. The pulsar is getting its fire rate increased only by 0.07 seconds, but its damage is being increased by 200. Now, we're probably seeing some gameplay, and other people have mentioned the pulsar already was strong. So I'm not even sure why they're actually buffing the pulsar. The shredder lockdown chance is being increased by 8%. The ion is having its damage increased by 950 points. The ion, a lot of people say it's a bad weapon, but if you actually put 4 ions maxed out, Mark II level 12 on a Spectre, that thing does a lot of damage and will completely roast most bots that it is actually hitting. So I don't really think that's needed, but I'm going to keep an open mind for the test server. The Corona is having its fire rate decreased. So it's going now from 0.7 seconds down to 0.5 seconds. So you can actually fire 0.2 seconds quicker. And its reload speed is being decreased as well, down to only 1 second from 1.4 seconds. The Glory is having its damage increase by 2,100. And the Redeemer has had a slight rework. Instead of having 12 rounds of ammo, it has 18 now. However, it's going from 3 shots in the string instead of 2. So every single time it fires 3 times instead of 2 times. And the gap between the individual shots is being decreased by 0.05 seconds. And the gap between full strings, so each section of 3 shots, is this gap between each one of those is being decreased by 0.2 seconds. And finally, let's get into the nerfs of the weapons. The Trident is having its area of effect damage decreased from 19 meters down to 12 meters. That's a loss of 7 meters. And its damage is being decreased by 240 per shot. The Avenger, it's a bit worse at the longer distance. Its damage itself is being reduced by 60 overall, so that's from 835 down to 775. Now, I did the math on this. On surface, it doesn't look like it's going to be that much of a game changer. However, the Avenger has 440 rounds in its max clip. If you have to be point blank range and hit every single shot of those 440 at a 60 points being reduced per shot now, that's a total reduction in damage of 26,400. You tell me that's not a significant nerf. So let's go on now. We have the Orkan, which is having its damage decreased by 130. The Columbus, damage being decreased by 135. The Halo having its damage decreased by 500. And the Gust having its damage decreased by 235. Again, I'll keep an open mind, but I don't think many, if any of those, are even warranted. So let's have a quick look at the hanger I'm going to be running. I want to make a quick caveat that in the second game, I'm running a Wayland. I tried multiple times to get good gameplay for the Wayland, so please forgive the actual gameplay. Nobody would ever go with me, so I could not get that working right. So the Wayland was just basically throwing a bot completely away. So looking at the hanger, this is what we have going on. First one, I'm going to be running Spectre, running 4 Ions, the Invader running Corona and 2 Gusts. And we have the Mercury running 2 Halos and a Glory. We have the Nemesis running 2 Scourge. And finally, we have a Mender running a Corona and 2 Gusts. So now let's see if we go over to the second hanger that I'm going to run. We're going to be looking at here. As I said, we're going to start with the Wayland, which was a throwaway bot. And I have an empty slot here because I'm going to actually throw my Spectre in here later with 4 Orkans. So I have the Wayland with an Ansel and Ember, the Raker with a Glory and 2 Spark. We have the Ares running 2 Pulsar and 2 Shredder. And we have the Strider running 2 Halo and an Ember. And as I said, the 4 slot, since on Tesla I can only have 1 Spectre equipped at any one time, I'm going to put a Spectre over here with 4 Orkans. So without any further ado, let's get into the action. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. So here are my final thoughts, and I'll try to go through this really quickly because there is a lot to go through, and I'll just give my really high-level summaries. So first off, a couple things about the actual controls. I noticed in the test server that the actual control buttons themselves were enlarged. So much so, and I'm not sure which one it is. I don't know if it's the fact that the fire button mechanics there were actually so large that they encroached on the special ability button, or if the special ability button was also moved down. Right now, the special ability button is right above the controls for firing your individual weapons. And now it's very, very easy to hit, just like the module button is. And why the heck has Pixonic not moved that module button yet? I don't know. But going between, on my same device, from the live server to the test server, the actual firing controls on the lower right hand side are quite enlarged. They don't need to be that big, and the button for the special ability has come down to right above those controls as well. So that needs to be completely fixed. They need to go back to how it was originally. Now, one thing you may have seen, and I should have maybe mentioned this before I actually got into the gameplay, but if you happen to go back and watch my gameplay or anybody else's that's on a test server, you'll notice that right underneath the menu button on the top right hand corner, when somebody goes into Fangs Out mode or is being locked in, where there's an indicator there that flashes indicating a certain person is being affected by corrosion, being affected by a special ability, etc. And it actually is quite annoying. I don't even see really what the value is for that indicator to be there. If the person isn't on your screen that you can see them with an icon, then what do you care if maybe somebody behind you has used one of their ability, or one of your teammates has used one of their abilities, or is being affected by corrosion, etc. It's just a visual distraction, and it could even be adding to some additional lag on the server. So I think Pixonic should just completely remove it whatsoever. With that being said, let's quickly look at my slides again for the buffs and nerfs and go over my individual thoughts. So the robot nerfs. I think they all need to be nerfed. I think maybe some of them has been a little bit outdone. I don't think the Mercury quite needed everything done that was done to it. The Hell Dive damage being decreased by 10,000, I don't think that was needed. I do think the stealth duration needs to be decreased. After all, you have somebody like the Inquisitor, which also has a 5-second stealth, but it has no special ability. And the Spectre didn't have any special ability other than just its stealth jump, and it was decreased. So given that the Mercury has a stealth jump and a special ability associated with it upon landing, I do feel that it just makes sense that the duration be slightly less. The Hellburner, I don't really know what Pixonic can do about it. One of the things I think they're doing here is they're still trying to address the fact that the higher tier clans are basically just doing Hellburner runs. They all drop in with Hellburners and basically just rush the enemy team. And unless it's a full squad going against a full squad, there's not much you can do if you're a bunch of randoms. You're just going to be completely overrun. So I think this is what Pixonic is trying to do, to somehow battle all these squads running Hellburners right off the bat. But, you know, you're going to be in a situation where no squads will just move something else. For instance, the Loki, which is the infinite stealth bot that we're testing on the test server as well in the Ragnarok pack. You're going to end up at some point having full squad just running 6 Lokis right off the bat. That because they have infinite stealth, they can't be hit. So I'm not sure what's going to be happening there. The Invader, it is one of, if not the most powerful bot in the game. It does need to be nerfed. I really don't think the decreased health is going to do anything. I know it sounds like quite a bit, but the people who are running Invaders, especially in higher leagues, they're running Invaders with maxed out heavy armor kits. So really, you know, decreasing by like 20,000 isn't going to do much when you're putting on 3 heavy armor kits, and the thing can have almost 600,000 durability anyways. So really, it's like a mosquito bite type thing on that. So I do think they need to look at the Invader a little bit more. As for the buffs on the robots, well, I can see most of these. The Hades and Nemesis need a little bit of love just because the Ares is completely overshadowing it. Now, maybe if they had nerfed the Ares, the Hades and Nemesis might have been okay on their own. I'm not sure. The Strider is questionable. I think the Strider was already a powerful bot. However, you had to be a really good pilot to use it successfully. The Blitz, the only thing I can really see the Blitz, I agree with the increase to the speed, because if you're not using its ability, that thing does seem extremely slow. I don't really think it needed any of the other changes. The Raker itself, I actually think it was quite an underrated bot. To be honest, it was a good bot previously. It was darn annoying to go against, especially since the previous update actually it added, I believe, an additional shot to its special ability. So with the previous update that happened, I've faced Rakers lots of times where it would fire off one shot, I'd be suppressed, and then by the time it gets to its last shot, I'm unsuppressed and they can suppress me again. So I'm now there suppressed constantly for, I think it's now an additional 10 seconds complete, just because of that additional shot that was added. Now with the change to the Raker, I think we're really going to see a lot more Rakers on the field with its increased damage, and the firing mechanic has been changed. The Wayland, I still think is going to be very useful. The problem with that thing, it's slow, when it's using its mode, it's stationary, and when people see a Wayland, especially when you get into higher leagues, that is the first thing that is targeted by everybody on the field. So they really, I think, need to look at, especially all the stationary bots, the Raijin, the Wayland, the Fujin. I think they need to rework those somewhat if they want them to be viable, to be able to use their abilities while walking and not have to be in, like, for instance, the Raijin in Bastion mode or anything like that. The Mender, I think it's a great change. It does a little bit more healing overall with the fourth pulse, but it's not a substantial change. It's just a minor buff to it. The Raijin, it's great to have a stronger shield, but again, once you get in higher gameplay, it's really not going to matter because a lot of people are running so many Orkans, etc. It just gets blown off the field. The Leo's increased health is great, as well as the Galahad. I still don't think the Galahad is going to be used in a higher tier gameplay. The Leo you do see sometimes. Now over to the weapons. The buffs. The Wasp, yes, it does need a buff. The Shock Train, I explained previously, while it is a buff, the overall damage per charge is actually slightly decreased, so I don't think we're going to have the whole Shock Train fest we had about a year ago. The Pulsar, that change definitely does not to be in there. I didn't do a great gameplay with Pulsar. I had some decent ones. I've seen other videos of people just completely dominating with the Pulsar. That thing was already strong. It doesn't need to be stronger. The Shredder lockdown chance, I can see that. The Ion, again, it doesn't need to be. It was already strong, just people just didn't really run it. They preferred other weapons. But it now does a lot of damage. The Corona, I can see that change. The Glory, the increase in damage, yes, but I do think its firing rate needs to be increased as well. And the Redeemer, I didn't get a chance to use it too much. I think it has some potential, but again, it was already a strong bot previously. The nerfs, you know what? None of these need to be. None of them. Not one. The Trident, okay, maybe you can decrease the area of effect a little bit. However, people don't stand out of the 20 meters range anyways. What they do is they get behind cover, and people who are firing at you with tridents are still can hit you because all you do is just go around a corner. So decreasing the range, I think it's 7 meters, whatever, is really going to do nothing. Isn't going to do much because most people who are trying to avoid tridents are not backing up out of the 20 meters range anyways. They're just going around a corner. The Avenger, that is a huge nerf. It doesn't need to happen. The Orkan doesn't need to happen. The Columbus, a lot of these are lower end to mid tier that people can get these. So why are you nerfing something that benefits the lower to mid tier players? I don't understand, especially if you want them to progress. The only reason I can look at is all of these, except for maybe the Halo, but all the other ones are cheap to upgrade. So Pixonic here, it's almost clear to me that what they're trying to do is trying to nerf these things to such a degree over time that people will go to the newer weapons, the more expensive ones, spend money, etc. But the Pixonic doesn't get the concept of microtransactions and having a player feel progression through the game and want to keep playing. Don't nerf the mid-tier stuff. Anyways, everyone, I hope you enjoyed over this weekend, and sorry about the length of the video. But as always, if you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And like this video if you enjoyed it. And until next time, cause some mayhem in the field for me.